market street was loud with voices, laughter, and the smell of food. People moved from one stall to another, buying fruits, bread, and roasted meat. The air was filled with warmth for some, but not for her. The alien girl sat in the shadow of a broken wall. Her hair was tangled, her clothes torn, her skin was covered with dust, her thin arms wrapped around her knees as if to hide her shaking body. Her stomach growled, but no one cared. She lifted her eyes slowly toward the stalls. Her gaze followed the movement of bread being cut, meat being roasted, water being poured into cups. Her eyes were hungry, not only for food, but also for kindness. Yet when her eyes met people, they turned away. Some smirked, others laughed. A child pointed at her and asked his mother, "Why does she sit like that?" The mother pulled the child away, whispering, "Dirty creature, stay away." The girl lowered her head again, her eyes filled with tears, but she did not let them fall. She had cried too many times. She knew that tears never brought food. She remembered the days when she had a family, when her mother's hand gave her bread, when laughter filled her home. But war had burned it all away. Now she was here, alone, treated like dirt. A group of young men passed by. Their laughter was sharp like knives. One of them threw a small piece of rotten fruit at her. It hit her shoulder. "Eat that dirt," he said, and they laughed louder. The girl stayed silent. She had learned not to answer. Her body trembled, but she only hugged her knees tighter. The laughter faded into the crowd, leaving her more empty than before. Her stomach hurt. Every smell in the market pulled her closer. Every sound of chewing and swallowing reminded her that she had nothing. She tried once more, crawling to the edge of the street. She looked up at a stall keeper. "Please, just a bite," she whispered. Her voice was soft, weak, almost lost. In the noise, the man looked at her with disgust. "Go away," he shouted. "You will scare customers." He kicked dust toward her. The crowd laughed again. The girl dragged herself back to the wall. Her heart was heavy. She felt like the whole world had turned into stone. No one cared. No one even saw her as alive. Maybe she was already half dead. She closed her eyes, whispering to herself, "Maybe tonight I will sleep and not wake up." But then something changed. A shadow fell across her. She thought it was another cruel person ready to kick her or laugh at her. Slowly she lifted her eyes. It was a human. A tall man, his clothes simple but clean, his boots dusty from travel, his face tired yet calm. He looked down at her, not with disgust, not with laughter, but with something she could not name. His eyes did not turn away. His eyes stayed on hers. The girl froze. Her breath caught. She whispered, "Go ahead. Laugh." But the man did not laugh. He crouched down. His voice was quiet but strong. "Are you hungry?" The girl stared. She thought she had misheard. No one asked her that. People only called her dirt, worthless, unclean. But this man's voice carried no hate, only simple concern. Her lips trembled. I am," she whispered, her throat dry. The man reached into a small bag he carried. He pulled out a piece of bread, not new, not fresh, but real food. He held it out toward her. The girl's eyes widened. Her hands shook. She looked around. People were watching. Some laughed, others whispered, "Why is he giving food to her? He must be mad. It's a waste." The girl pulled her hands back, afraid. "No, if I take it, they will hurt me more." The man looked around at the crowd. His jaw tightened. He did not care about their whispers. He pushed the bread gently closer to her hands, his voice firm. "Take it. They don't matter. You matter." Her heart pounded. She reached out slowly. Her thin fingers touched the bread. The warmth of food in her hands felt unreal. Her tears finally fell, dropping onto the dry ground. She bit into it carefully. Her whole body shook as the taste filled her mouth. It was the first real food she had in days. The man stayed crouched, watching her. He did not smile. He did not pity. He simply stayed there, silent, as if guarding her from the eyes around them. The girl looked up at him between bites. Her voice broke. "Why?" The man's reply was simple yet heavy. "Because no one should be left to starve." The market was still noisy. People still whispered, but for the girl, the world had gone quiet. Only the bread in her hands and the human's steady eyes mattered. For the first time in a long time, she felt something different, a spark of hope, small but alive. Her hungry eyes softened. They no longer searched the crowd. They stayed on the man who had noticed her. The crowd around the market did not go silent, but their eyes followed every small move. Whispers spread like fire. Look at the human. He gives bread to the dirt. He must be blind. No human should lower himself like this. The laughter had a cruel edge, but the man ignored it. The alien girl clutched the bread tightly, afraid that someone would snatch it away. She kept her head low, but she could feel the heat of people's stares burning her skin. She had lived with shame for so long that she had forgotten what it felt like to be seen with kindness. The man finally stood up. He looked over the crowd. His face was calm, but his eyes sharp. He did not shout, yet his silence seemed louder than their voices. For a moment the crowd shifted uncomfortably, but as soon as he turned back to the girl, the mocking whispers began again. "Come," he said softly. His voice was steady, not asking but deciding. He held out his hand. The girl blinked in shock. Her lips parted, but no sound came. No one had ever asked her to come with them. She was always told to leave, always pushed away. "Where?" she whispered. "To a place where you are not dirt," the man said. His tone was simple, almost casual, but every word felt heavy to her ears. Her heart pounded. She looked at his hand, then at the crowd. The faces around her were twisted with disgust. Their eyes dared her to move, dared her to believe this could be real. She hesitated, fear pulling her back into the shadows. If she stood, they might attack. If she refused, she would remain hungry and cold. The man crouched again, lowering his hand so she would not feel small. "I cannot promise much," he said quietly, "but I can promise this. You will not starve with me." Her breath caught. She felt the truth in his words. No mockery, no lies, no cruel smile. Slowly, trembling, she placed her thin hand into his. It was weak, but it was enough. Gasps rose from the market. Some laughed louder. "Look at him, carrying dirt like treasure. He must be desperate." Others shook their heads. "It's shameful." The man ignored them. He lifted her carefully to her feet. She swayed, her legs weak, but his grip was strong enough to steady her. For a moment, she leaned against him, not because she trusted, but because she had no strength left. He guided her through the crowd. Each step felt like walking through fire. Every eye was on her. Some threw small stones, some spit on the ground near her feet. She wanted to let go, to fall, but the man did not stop. His back was straight, his pace firm. It was as if he dared anyone to challenge him. Finally, they reached the end of the market street. The noise faded, the crowd stayed behind. Their mocking voices were still there, but weaker now. The girl took a deep breath as if she had come out of drowning water. They walked in silence for a while. The girl kept glancing at him, confusion written on her face. At last she whispered, "Why me?" The man did not answer immediately. He looked ahead, his eyes on the path. "Because I saw you," he said finally. "Not what they called you, not the dirt they believe. I saw you." Her chest tightened. She wanted to speak, to ask more, but the words stuck in her throat. She had been invisible for so long, and now someone claimed to see her. It was frightening and warming at the same time. After a while, her strength gave out. She stumbled. The man stopped at once. His arm moved, under hers, holding her steady. "You are weak," he said. "We need to rest." They stopped near an old stone bench under a tree. The man helped her sit down. He opened his bag again, pulling out a small flask of water. He handed it to her. The girl shook her head quickly. No, it's yours." "I wouldn't offer if I could not give," he replied simply, pressing it into her hands. Her lips touched the flask. The water was cool and clear. She drank slowly, afraid it might run out. Each drop felt like life flowing. Back into her veins, she lowered it and whispered, "Thank you." The man nodded once, as if it required no reply. The girl studied him quietly. His face was scarred in places, his hair rough. His clothes were not rich, not fine, yet he carried himself with dignity. He was not like the laughing crowd. He was different. But why he chose her was still a mystery. Finally, she asked the question that burned inside her. "What do you want from me?" The man turned his head toward her, his eyes serious. "Nothing." Her mouth opened slightly. "Nothing?" she repeated. She could not believe it. No one gave without wanting something back. She had been beaten, mocked, used, and always the price was heavy. He nodded slowly. "Nothing but this. Eat, live, and walk with dignity again." The girl lowered her eyes. Her hands shook as she held the flask tighter. Her heart ached with emotions she did not understand. Was this real? Or was it another trick, another cruel joke waiting to break her? But when she glanced back at him, she saw no trick in his eyes, only a quiet strength. And so, the starving girl, once treated like dirt, took her first small step into trust guided by the human's choice. The alien girl walked beside the human, her steps unsteady. Her body was weak, her stomach empty, but inside her chest a strange new feeling grew. Fear and hope were fighting each other. She kept her eyes on the ground, too afraid to look at him for long. The man led her through narrow streets, away from the market, away from the mocking crowd. The noise faded behind them until only the sound of their footsteps remained. At last, they reached a small wooden house near the edge of the village. It looked old but strong, smoke rising gently from a chimney. The girl stopped at the doorway. Her heart raced. She thought maybe this was a trap. Maybe inside waited more laughter, more cruelty. But the man opened the door without hesitation and stepped in. He looked back at her. "Come," he said simply. Her feet trembled, but she followed. The inside was warm. The scent of cooked grains and herbs filled the air. For her, it was almost unbearable. Her empty stomach twisted with hunger. Her mouth filled with saliva. She had not smelled real food in weeks. The man placed his bag on a small table. He took a clay pot from the corner, steam rising as he lifted the lid. The smell grew stronger. The girl's knees felt weak. She pressed her arms against her stomach, afraid it might growl too loudly. He noticed. His voice was calm. "Sit," he said, pointing to a wooden chair. She obeyed, lowering herself carefully as if afraid the chair might break under her. The man poured some thick soup into a bowl. He placed it in front of her, steam curled into the air. The girl stared at it. Her hands shook. She wanted to grab it and drink it all, but fear held her back. The man sat across from her, waiting, not eating himself. "It's yours," he said, her lips parted. "Mine?" The word sounded strange. She was used to food being stolen, to scraps thrown at her feet like to a stray animal. "Never had anyone said it's yours?" "Yes," the man replied. "Eat." Her thin fingers curled around the bowl. The heat stung her skin, but she did not let go. Slowly she lifted it closer. Her eyes watered from the steam. Her first sip was small, cautious. The taste filled her mouth, warm, soft, real. Her whole body shivered. She had forgotten what real food felt like. Her tears spilled over. She took another sip, then another, faster now. Her throat swallowed eagerly. She could not stop. It was too good, too life-giving. Her shoulders shook with quiet sobs. The man stayed silent, watching her eat. He did not mock. He did not rush her. He only made sure the bowl stayed steady in her trembling hands. When at last the bowl was empty, she lowered it slowly. Her breaths came fast. Her hands trembled with both weakness and relief. She whispered, "Why?" Her voice cracked. "Why would you give this to me?" The man leaned back slightly, his eyes calm. "Because you are starving," he said, "and no one should starve." Her heart twisted. She wanted to believe, but her past screamed warnings. She had seen kindness used as a mask before. A hand, offering help but hiding cruelty behind it. She studied his face, searching for lies, but all she saw was honesty, quiet and steady. Still, fear whispered inside her. You don't want anything in return? His brow furrowed slightly. I want you to live, he said. His words were simple, but they struck her harder than any insult she had ever received. Her eyes dropped to her lap. Her fingers clenched the empty bowl. She whispered so softly that he almost did not hear. I thought I was already dead to the world. You're not, he said firmly. You're alive, and that is enough. The girl looked at him. Her lips trembled. She wanted to speak, but no words came. Her heart ached in a way she did not understand. The man stood. He moved to the pot again, poured more soup and set it in front of her. Eat more, he said. She hesitated, glancing at him. But, what about you? I will eat later, he replied. For now you need this more than I do. Her eyes filled with fresh tears. She picked up the bowl again. Slowly, carefully she ate. This time not like a starving animal, but with a little trust. A little dignity. He had given her that without asking for it. When she finished, warmth spread through her body. Her stomach no longer cried in pain. Her eyes grew heavy. Her body wanted rest. She leaned back in the chair, whispering, I don't understand you. The man's lips curved slightly, not a full smile, but close. You don't need to understand. Just eat, rest, and tomorrow we will see what comes. She nodded faintly. Her head dipped forward. She fought sleep, afraid it was unsafe, but the warmth of food and fire pulled her under. Her eyes closed, and for the first time in many nights, she slept without fear. The man quietly covered her with a blanket, his face unreadable. He sat near the fire, watching, guarding. Outside the night deepened. The world still cruel, still full of voices that laughed at her. But inside this small home, for one night, she was safe, fed, and alive. The small wooden house was quiet except for the soft crackle of fire in the corner. The alien girl lay on a rough but warm blanket, her thin body trembling less than before. She had eaten. Her stomach was no longer in pain, yet her mind was restless. Her eyes opened and closed, unable to believe this was real. She turned her head slightly. The human sat not far away, near the fire, his back straight, his eyes half closed. He was not sleeping. He was watching, guarding. She did not know why. The warmth of the fire touched her face. Her body begged for rest, but her heart whispered fear. She thought, what if this is just another trick? What if tomorrow he throws me out? For so long she had lived with cruelty that even kindness felt dangerous. Her fingers touched the edge of the blanket. It was rough wool, not soft, but to her it felt like luxury. She whispered into the silence, Why are you doing this? The man did not move for a long moment. His eyes stayed on the flames. Finally he said, Because no one else would. The words sank into her chest, heavy and strange. She wanted to ask more, but her throat tightened. Her eyes closed again. This time sleep came quietly. Hours passed. Outside the night grew colder. Wind brushed against the wooden walls, but inside the house the fire kept them warm. The girl's breathing grew steady. She dreamed for the first time in weeks. Not of hunger, not of cruelty, but of her mother's voice singing long ago. She woke once in the middle of the night, startled, and found the man still awake, still sitting. She closed her eyes again, feeling oddly safe. When morning came, pale light entered through a small window. The girl sat up slowly, her body sore, but less weak. She looked around. The man was gone. Panic hit her chest. Did he leave me? She thought, did he decide I am not worth it after all? She rushed to the door, her legs almost gave way. But when she opened it, she saw him outside chopping wood. His arms moved steady and strong. The sound of axe striking wood filled the cold air. He noticed her, lowered the axe, and nodded once. You're awake, he said, his voice calm as always. The girl blinked, her fear fading slowly. I thought, you left, she whispered. The man shook his head. I said you are safe with me, I meant it. Her chest ached. She stepped back inside, the warmth of the house calling her again. She sat on the chair from last night, still trying to understand. Soon, the man entered carrying a bundle of wood. He placed it near the fire and lit it again. He then took a small pot and poured water inside. He looked at her and said, "You should wash. There is water outside. I will give you soap." The girl froze. Her hands tightened around the blanket on her shoulders. Her voice trembled. "Wash? But—" He placed the soap gently on the table, not forcing her. "You don't have to, but if you want to feel clean again, the water is there." Her throat tightened. She remembered the jeers in the market. Dirty creature, they had, called her always dirt, never a person. Tears filled her eyes. Washing meant more than removing dust. It meant removing shame. But fear still held her. The man stood and walked to the door. "I will be outside," he said, his voice steady. "No one will bother you." She stared at the soap. Her hands shook as she picked it up. Slowly, she stepped outside. The cold air touched her skin. She found the small barrel of water he had prepared. For a long moment, she just stared at her reflection. Hollow eyes, messy hair, skin covered with dirt. She almost did not recognize herself. Finally, she dipped her hands in. The water stung it first, but she began to wash. Slowly, the dirt faded. Her skin showed beneath. Her tangled hair loosened under her fingers. Her reflection changed, still thin, still tired, but no longer only dirt. When she returned inside, her clothes were still torn, but her face was different. Her eyes looked brighter, more alive. She sat again by the fire, silent. The man glanced at her. He gave a short nod. "Better," he said simply. No long speech, no praise. Just one word that meant more than any laughter she had endured. Her heart tightened. She lowered her head, whispering, "I don't remember the last time anyone looked at me and said that." "You should hear it more often," he said. She looked at him, confusion and hope mixing in her eyes. She wanted to ask him who he really was, why he cared, but her courage failed. Instead, she wrapped the blanket tighter, feeling the warmth sink into her bones. For the first time, the alien girl had shelter. A roof over her head, warmth of fire, and someone who did not see her as dirt. It was only one night, one small house, but to her it felt like another world. As the day moved on, she watched him prepare food again, chop wood, and fix the broken chair. He worked silently, but his silence was not cold. It was steady. She realized he was not trying to make her feel small. He was simply giving her space to breathe. By evening, when the fire burned bright again, she whispered to herself, "Maybe I can survive another day." And for the first time, the thought did not hurt. The next morning, the village was already alive with noise. The market street was full once again. People shouting prices, children running, and laughter echoing through the air. But beneath the cheerful sounds was always the same cruelty, the whispers about the dirty alien girl who dared to breathe their air. Inside the small wooden house, the girl sat quietly near the fire. She had eaten again, her stomach no longer twisted in pain, her body still weak, but she could stand without falling now. For the first time in weeks, her eyes looked brighter. The human man stood by the door, preparing to step outside. He glanced at her. "Stay close today," he said. His tone steady, not commanding but protective. She hesitated. You want me to come?" "Yes," he replied simply. "You need to walk again, and you must learn that you are not dirt." Her chest tightened. The words felt heavy. She wrapped the blanket around her shoulders and followed him when they stepped into the market. The noise shifted instantly. Heads turned, whispers began. Eyes full of disgust locked onto her. Some voices spoke loud enough for her to hear. "Look at her, walking like she belongs. That human must be blind. He's wasting food on trash." The girl's steps faltered. Her face burned with shame. She wanted to run back into the house. But the man kept walking, his back straight, his pace calm. He did not slow for their voices, his silence was stronger than their noise. At one stall, a merchant shouted, "Hey, human, do you know what you carry beside you? A plague, a curse, she will only bring you ruin." The man stopped. He turned slowly, his eyes locked on the merchant. The crowd fell quieter, waiting for his reaction. His voice was low, but every word cut through the air. "She is not a curse. She is not dirt. She is alive. And if you call her dirt, then you call me dirt too." Gasps spread through the market. No one expected him to speak like this. The merchant's face twisted with anger. "You insult us by defending her." "I insult no one," the man said calmly. "But I will not stand by while you insult her." The girl's heart pounded. Her eyes widened. She had never seen anyone defend her before. People always turned away, always agreed she was worthless. But here was a man standing in front of the whole market saying she mattered. The whispers grew louder, some laughed, some shouted, "He's mad." She must have bewitched him. Throw her out. Stones were picked up, one small, one larger. They landed near her feet. She flinched, her body shaking. The man stepped forward, his voice rose, sharp now. "Enough!" The sudden power in his voice silenced many. He stood tall, his shadow long in the morning light. His eyes scanned the crowd. "You laugh at her hunger, you spit at her weakness, and yet you call yourselves strong. If strength means crushing the helpless, then I would rather be weak." The crowd shifted uneasily. Some turned away ashamed. Others clenched their fists in anger. A few muttered, "Humans always think they are better." The girl stared at him, her eyes wet. Her hands gripped the blanket tighter. She whispered, Why do you do this? They will hate you now." He looked back at her, his voice softer. "Let them hate. It changes nothing. You are still alive, and you will not starve again." The girl's breath caught. For the first time, she felt not just fed or sheltered, but defended. Someone had chosen to stand with her against the entire crowd, but the danger was not over. The merchant slammed his hand on his stall. "If she stays, others will follow. Soon our streets will be filled with filth. We must stop this now." The crowd stirred again, voices rising. The girl's fear returned. She wanted to disappear, to vanish before they attacked. The man stepped closer to her, placing himself between her and the crowd, his voice steady once more. "If you want her gone, you will have to move through me." Gasps again. The tension hung in the air like a storm ready to break. The girl clutched his arm without thinking. Her body shook. She whispered, "Please, let's go." He glanced at her, then nodded slowly. Without another word, he guided her away from the market, his steps firm, his shoulders unshaken. The crowd's voices followed them, but none dared to strike. When they finally reached the edge of the village, the girl's legs gave out. She sank to the ground, her chest heaving, her eyes wide with fear. She whispered, "You risked yourself for me. Why?" The man knelt beside her, his eyes steady. "Because you deserve more than laughter and stones." Her tears spilled freely now. She buried her face in her hands. Her voice broke. "I don't know how to thank you. I don't even know how to live anymore." He placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "Then start small, eat, rest, and walk beside me. That is enough." The girl lifted her face slowly, her eyes still wet but brighter than before. For the first time she believed. Maybe, just maybe, she was not dirt after all. The road away from the market was quiet. Only the sound of their footsteps touched the air. The alien girl kept close to the human, her hands still trembling from the anger of the crowd. She carried the blanket tightly around her thin shoulders, afraid that at any moment someone would chase after them, but no one came. When they reached the small house again, the man opened the door. She stepped inside quickly, her heart still racing. He followed. Behind, shutting the door firmly, the fire inside had burned low, but its warmth remained. She sank down onto the chair, covering her face. He watched her for a moment, then spoke softly. "They cannot harm you here, not while I am with you." Her breath came shaky. She lowered her hands. Her eyes were red. She whispered, Why do you protect me? They all hate me. And now they hate you too. The man moved closer, pulling more wood for the fire, his voice calm. Let them hate. Hate is easy. Kindness is rare. The words pierced her heart. For a long moment she stared at the fire in silence. The crackle of flames reminded her of another fire, one from long ago, the fire that destroyed her home. Her lips trembled, her chest tightened with pain she had tried to bury. She whispered, "Do you want to know why they hate me?" The man glanced at her, his eyes steady. "Only if you want to tell me." Her hands shook. She pulled the blanket tighter. Her voice came slow, broken. "I was not always like this. I was not always dirt." She paused, swallowing hard. "My family. We were known, respected. My mother was kind, my father strong. We lived in a big house full of light." Her eyes glistened. But then the war came. Everything burned. She looked at him, her eyes wet. "They said my family chose the wrong side. They said we were traitors. My parents were killed, our house destroyed, and me." She choked. "They left me in the street. They told the village I was cursed, worthless, not even fit to bury." The man did not move. He did not interrupt. His face stayed calm, listening. Her voice grew sharper, pain spilling out. "Do you know what it feels like to have food thrown at you like trash? To hear laughter when you cry? To watch people enjoy your hunger?" Her body shook. Her tears fell freely now. "I stopped being a person to them. I became dirt." The silence stretched heavy between them. The fire popped. The girl's sobs filled the room. Finally, the man spoke, his voice steady. "They lied to you?" She blinked, looking up. "What?" "They lied," he said firmly, his eyes fixed on hers. "You are not dirt. You are alive. You breathe. You feel. You fight to survive. That alone makes you more than all of them who laugh." Her lips trembled. Her heart raced. She had never heard anyone speak like that before. No one had ever told her she was more than dirt, but doubt still whispered. She shook her head. "Even if I was once something, the time is gone. I am nothing now." The man leaned forward slightly, his tone stronger. "You are not nothing. I see you. Not as they see you, but as you are." Her eyes widened. Her tears flowed again. But this time they were mixed with something else, a strange warmth, a small spark of hope. For a while neither spoke. The fire burned brighter, filling the small house with light. Finally she whispered, almost afraid of her own words, "If you see me, then maybe I am not lost completely." The man nodded once. "You are not lost, you only need time." Her chest tightened. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to hold on to those words. But part of her still feared it was too good to be true. Still, the way he looked at her without disgust, without laughter, made her believe a little. After some silence, she asked softly, "What about you? Why are you here, alone in this place? You do not belong in this village either." He looked at the fire, his face unreadable for a moment. Then he said, "I was a soldier once. I fought in wars. I saw too much, lost too much. I left the armies, came here to live quiet." Her eyes widened. She leaned closer. "You fought in the war?" "Yes," he said quietly. "I know what it takes from people. It takes homes, families, and leaves only ashes." Her lips parted, her heart twisted. For the first time, she felt a strange connection. His life too had been touched by war, by loss. Maybe that was why he understood her pain. She whispered, "So you know what it is to lose everything?" He nodded slowly. "Yes, I know." Silence again, but not empty silence. It was heavy, filled with shared wounds. She lowered her gaze, her hands trembling less than before. Finally, the girl whispered, "Then, maybe we are both not dirt. Maybe we are both just trying to live again." The man's eyes softened. He gave a short nod. "Exactly." Her heart beat faster. She pulled the blanket tighter. For the first time since her life had shattered, she felt a tiny spark of belonging. Not in the village, not with the crowd, but here, in this small house, beside the one human who had chosen to see her, and deep inside she thought, maybe I can learn to live again. The morning sun broke through the clouds, painting the sky in pale gold. The alien girl stood at the doorway of the small house, wrapped in the blanket the man had given her. Her hair was still damp from washing the night before, her skin cleaner, her eyes brighter. For the first time in a long time, she did not feel invisible. The man stepped outside carrying a small wooden basket. He was quiet as always, his movements calm, steady. He placed the basket on the ground and said, "We will need food today. You should come." Her body tensed. Memories of the crowd filled her mind, their laughter, their stones, their hate. She whispered, "If I go back, they will laugh again." The man turned to her, his eyes firm. "Let them laugh, their words cannot change what you are, but if you hide forever, then they win." Her chest rose and fell quickly. Fear battled with the spark of hope inside her. Slowly, she nodded, clutching the blanket tighter. I will try." Together they walked down the road, his pace strong, hers hesitant. Every step toward the market felt heavier than the last. The girl kept her head low, but this time she was not alone. The man walked beside her, not in front, not behind, but beside, as if to say she was equal. When they entered the market, whispers rose at once. People turned, eyes narrowed, voices hissed. "She dares to return. Look at her, thinking she belongs." Some laughed, others spat on the ground. Her legs almost gave way, but the man's steady presence beside her gave her strength. He did not stop, did not look at them. He walked straight to a stall, placed a coin on the table and asked for bread. The stallkeeper looked at the coin, then at the girl. His face twisted. "Not for her, I don't serve filth." The man's voice was calm but sharp. "You will take the coin and give the bread, or you will answer to me." The stallkeeper hesitated. The crowd watched, tension rising. Finally, with a curse, the man shoved a loaf onto the table. The human picked it up, handed it to the girl, and said clearly so all could hear, "It's hers." Gasps spread through the market. The girl's hand shook as she held the bread. Not scraps, not stolen, but bought for her, openly. The laughter of the crowd faltered, their mockery weaker. Now, she looked around, her eyes wide. For the first time, she did not drop her gaze. Instead, she clutched the bread to her chest and stood taller beside him. Some in the crowd still sneered, some whispered, "He has gone mad." But others were silent, watching, unsure. Something about the sight of her standing beside the human, alive and unbroken, stirred unease in them. The man guided her through the rest of the market, buying small things, ignoring the stares. Every time she hesitated, his calm voice said, "Walk." And she walked. By the time they returned to the small house, the girl was trembling, but not only from fear. Her heart raced with something new, pride. For the first time she had walked through the market not as dirt thrown in the corner, but as someone who was seen. Inside, she placed the bread on the table. Her hand shook. Her voice broke as she whispered, "I don't understand. How do you keep standing against them? How do you not fall when they all hate you?" The man placed the basket down and looked at her. "Because hate is only loud, not strong. Strength is walking forward even when they try to stop you." Her lips parted, her chest ached. She sat on the chair and whispered, "I thought I had no future, but now, maybe I do." The man's voice softened. "You do." Tears filled her eyes, she whispered. "You didn't just give me food, you gave me life." For a long moment, silence filled the room. Only the fire crackled. The girl pressed her hands, together her heart heavy with emotion she could not name. Then slowly she stood. She walked to him, her steps shaky but firm. She looked into his eyes and said, "I am not dirt." He nodded once. "No, you are not." The words wrapped around her like armor. Her whole body trembled, but she felt stronger than ever before. Days passed. Each day she ate, walked, and rested. Each day the whispers in the market grew a little weaker. The crowd still laughed, still mocked, but the human's calm defiance never broke. And slowly the girl began to believe in herself. One evening, as the sun set, painting the sky with fire, she stood outside the house with the blanket around her shoulders. She looked at the horizon and whispered, "A new beginning." The man stood beside her silent. But in his quiet presence she felt it too. The world was still cruel. The people still mocked. But something inside her had changed. She was no longer the starving girl treated like dirt. She was someone alive. Someone who could walk again. And deep in her heart she knew this was not the end of her story but the start of a new one.